Only choose women that choose you, how to punish the behaviors that you don't like, and how to reward the behaviors that you do like. That's what we're going to be talking about in this video. And this is for guys that are probably in relationships or have probably been dealing with a woman exclusively or monogamously. And these are going to be lessons that I've learned after the last, 5 months of dating the woman that I'm with. So let's dive into it. Now, when you're in the early phases of dating, for those of you that haven't started dating a woman, and for those of you guys that are, make sure that you have followed this framework correctly to set the proper foundation. Now, everybody knows that in 2026, women are very flaky, right? They're kind of weighing out their options, they're playing games, they're hard to get a hold of, they're weighing their options, and as they should, right? Now, as a man, it's a terrible idea to put your focus and put your eggs in one basket. So you kind of have to do the same thing. Now, this doesn't mean that you need to be like sleeping with everybody, but what you should be doing is generating options for yourself and, having a pipeline of proverbial plates that you're spinning so that you can allow the cream to rise to the top. And as a man, when it comes to getting into a relationship, it's a slightly difficult line that you need to walk between when selecting, for exclusivity or monogamy. Uh, between sacrificing a little bit on the end of like how attracted you are to the woman versus on sacrificing on the other side of like how your mental health is doing, okay? Because the reality is that the more attracted you are to a woman and like the more attractive she is, typically speaking, the more, difficult she's going to be and the less the more your mental health is going to kind of deteriorate. So, depending on your personal sexual market value, that's what's going to kind of give you where you stand in terms of like how attractive a woman can be versus how well she'll treat you, because the two kind of go like hand in hand depending on who you are. But that's what you got to figure out, right? Is you don't want to be in a relationship where you're totally unfulfilled by, her attractiveness, and you don't want to also be in a relationship where regardless of how attracted you are, she just doesn't treat you the right way. And so that's why I'm saying, like, you only want to deal with women that want to deal with you. And you only really want to choose women that get a sense of pleasure from giving you what you want and then making you happy. And so some of you guys that are watching this video might find yourself in a situation where you're, with a woman that you've been dating and maybe, things are kind of slowing down and maybe behavior is getting worse. And, this is going to be a little bit about like how to, kind of correct that and mistakes that I made where I wish that I would have handled it a little bit differently, because this is something that Richard Cooper from Unplugged Alpha talks about a lot, is the three itties that basically destroy your relationship, right? So familiarity, proximity, and then exclusivity. And look, like, women would hate to admit this, but the more that you give them these three things, the worse they begin to kind of like treat you. Okay, so the familiarity piece is like she's just like familiar with you. She knows where you are all the time. She knows what you're doing all the time. She's familiar with your routine, who you spend time with. Like, there's no mystery anymore. Okay, so it's just the reality, man. Like, the more mystery there is, the more that she has to mentally invest in trying to like, uh, you know, worry and figure you out, and just like kind of cause this like what we call emotional quicksand, which is actually like very healthy for attraction. Okay, so being too familiar is one thing, and then proximity, right? This is for guys that are like always with their girlfriend, or living together, right? The more that you're within close proximity, the more that polarity begins to imbalance. You become more like each other, and the more the kind of like dynamic begins to become plutonic or kind of like roommates. And then exclusivity, right? When she knows she's the only girl that you're seeing, when she knows that you've cut off all of your other options, when she knows she no longer has to compete, and she knows that basically like she's the only woman in your life. Again, the reason that is detrimental to attraction is because her competition anxiety has gone down. So what can you do, right? Like, it's not like you can just avoid your girlfriend, and it's not like you can just cheat on your girlfriend, and it's not like you can just, try to play a game to be mysterious with your girlfriend. So what can you really do, right? And this is what I've kind of realized is like it's just all about having these, clean cut boundaries and standards, and not letting any sort of like disrespect or contempt or just kind of almost like yeah, I mean, really, like the nagging and all that stuff, you can't really let that creep in. And so mistake that I made is that I used to get like kind of combative, and I used to kind of like argue a little bit, right? And try to like explain or, tell what I don't like, right? And this would cause upset. It would cause arguments, which actually can be a little bit healthy, right? Like be a little bit toxic, like cause some drama and stir up some bullshit in the relationship. Um, and don't be afraid to ruffle the feathers. But what's really much more powerful is like when the woman that you're dealing with is not choosing you, right? Like when you can sense and when you can feel that she's not like in a mental headspace where she gains pleasure by giving what you want and making you happy. The only thing that you can really do is just simply create distance, right? So that's the only leverage that you have. You don't threaten breakups, you don't want to give ultimatums. Like the best thing that you can simply do, when these situations arise or there's arguments or you feel things, kind of getting a little bit stale or plutonic, is just take a step back and take a step away, right? And that can mean just like removing yourself. That might mean needing to be able to, like, for example, when, the disrespect or the contempt comes up, right? And instead of trying to like explain how you don't like that, instead of trying to like ask her not to do that, instead of like, you know, like trying to just basically negotiate your way out of that position, like logically, the best thing that I wish I would have just been doing like early on in the beginning is just saying like, hey, like, time out. Let's like let's like correct this behavior, or I just like feel like I should probably, go home. That would be probably 10 times more effective than like sitting around and especially trying to like deal with it, or push it down, or ignore that it's happening, and just basically start putting yourself in a position where what's building up inside of you is resentment, right? You need to just like remove yourself. Like the only true leverage that you have is the power of your attention, right? The power of like your physical presence too. So really, like if it comes down to it, like you gotta just remove yourself, walk away, take a walk. And so when you're dealing with women, and what you're looking for is women that choose you and women that gain pleasure from giving you what you want and seeing you be happy. Like when you're not getting that, you just need to simply create distance and remove yourself, and they'll know. Like they get it. Like they're very smart. They know what they're doing. They know when they're out of line. They know when they're not behaving in a way that is like they understand, you know what I mean? Like women are not stupid. They might play dumb. They might blame it on the time of the month. They might blame it on all kinds of other things. The reality is that she's simply losing attraction for you, right? The reality is that when respect is going down and contempt is rising, like she's just losing that emotional like attraction for you. And so honestly, the best thing that you can do as a man is like be able to recognize that and pick up on that emotion, and then be the one that's willing to like walk away at least, and not necessarily break up, but just remove yourself from the situation and then go do something fun, or go do something without her, or spend time with friends, or whatever the case is. And it's funny because like you might think she doesn't want that, but like subconsciously she really wants to see that happen. Like she really wants to see that you understand the dynamic is wrong. She wants to see that you're on top of it and are backing off, because this to her demonstrates the competency, and she may not like the way that makes her feel, but what will happen is attraction will rise, and it's extremely confusing and counterintuitive. But sometimes, like when I've given my best behavior, I get the worst, right? And then when I'm on my worst behavior, I get the best, and it's just true. So I'm sorry to tell you guys this, but like that's always how it's gonna be. Like that's gonna be the game. It's just in our human nature. There's no such thing as just like this perfectly ideal relationship where it's just like completely reciprocal and you can just check out and things just coast. You have to constantly be monitoring, like, how is she treating me? Is she choosing me? And at any sign of that, at the sign that she's not, there's no arguing. There's no like negotiating. It's simply just removal, right? It's simply just, hey, I'm going to take a break from texting for a little bit, or hey, I'm going to probably just like get my stuff and like go home for a little while. And it may get to a point where like it's not just words. You may have to physically get yourself and then do it, right? And what you'll find is that that's when they kind of start coming back and they'll correct it and they actually appreciate it. So, anyways, hopefully that's helpful for you guys. Hit me up for your dating advice, hit me up for your social circle advice. Click the link below this video if you want to get into my school community. I've got tons of pre-recorded training videos that take you from beginner to expert with all my dating tips, all my networking tips, and creating a social circle. I'll see you guys on the inside. Peace out.